Hey, good morning. We are going to try and tackle a nocturne scene, kind of an imaginary scene, smash up of a whole bunch of reference material. Um, we're going to call it Moon Shadow. Yes, it's inspired by, the relatively famous song from the 70s, I believe. And we're going to try and bust through it as quickly as we can, probably in just about an hour if we're lucky. And we'll see how this goes. Alright, I'm just going to make a small adjustment here to the camera view. I am using a smaller canvas. It's 11 by 14. I do have my palette set up here, which you probably can't see in its entirety, and I apologize for that, but we have our normal palette that I've been using for ever since I started painting. Basically an adapted palette structure from the early days of the YouTube videos that Kyle Buckland used to post. And I think I've mentioned him before. He and Stuart Davies are two of my primary kind of informal mentors, thanks to their free video content. I picked up painting almost 2 years ago now. Oil painting. I had painted and drawn prior to that for quite a long time, but we have yellow ochre, sap green, burnt umber, dioxazine purple, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, big puddle of titanium white, and I am incorporating a little bit of black, but I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to use pure black at any point. I'm going to use it to create darker gray shades and darker sepia tones throughout the painting. Really just at a minimum. This largely will have more of a bluish and sepia kind of mood and tone to it. And oh boy, my brushes are starting to get beat up pretty good, but that's okay. What I'm gonna do is just clean this out a little bit. I'm gonna use my ragged longer handled hardware store brush, which I'm gonna have to, looks like I'm gonna have to maybe spruce this up a little bit. It's getting a little too ragged for my taste, but it's helpful in creating textures. I'm just gonna give myself a little bit of additional linseed oil, which in the studio here I'll just put in this glass cup, which I'll clean every now and again if I'm out in the field. I have some fancier contraptions, some stainless steel contraptions, and made specifically for plein air painting that I use. So what I'm gonna do here is just a quick visualization. Gonna kind of break the canvas up roughly into thirds on a vertical and horizontal plane, and I am doing this in kind of the portrait layout, just trying to hopefully emphasize the height of the sky relative to the earth. And I'll probably put a nice big old moon right around here. And generally want to avoid putting the center of interest directly in the center, and we're going to do that. And the primary center of influence will be the sky around the moon. Secondary will probably be some sort of reflection on the earth, or maybe on some hint of water. It's going to be really dark and moody, borderline spooky. And then tertiary focus will be some of the deep shadows that you're going to see on the earth, basically, and amongst the trees. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and mix up a little bit of, and I'm actually going to use my palette knife to begin with here. I want a little bit more control to begin with. I'm going to take, probably didn't need all that white. That's okay. I'll use this palette hopefully for 2 or 3 paintings. So I'll take my ultramarine blue, nice pile of that, my cerulean blue, a little bit of that. So probably 9-to-1 ratio right now, roughly, of cerulean blue to ultramarine blue. And by the way, I don't have a ton of experience with nocturnal paintings, so I'm experimenting right now. Okay, now I'm going to take, I want to create a series of blues and blue grays, and I want to limit it to a relatively small variety. So I have this puddle of the mixture of ultramarine and cerulean blue, and I'm going to stretch it out a little bit on my palette. Now, what I want to do is I want to start mixing in, I think we have a feral cat outside. Interesting stuff going on here. All right, we're gonna mix in a little bit of that dioxazine purple. We're gonna pull it right down into that pile. Just gonna shift my light blue to purple. Okay. And now what I'm mixing in my mind is the 2 or 3 shades of the darkest shadow colors in the sky. So this is where the clouds would be their heaviest. And then I'm just gonna wipe this off a little bit, because now we're gonna move and tint that larger pile of blue that I mixed to the right. We're gonna tint that. We're gonna tint all these and make them and gray them out a little bit. But gonna get another pile over here, and we're gonna incorporate a little bit more cerulean blue than we have in the middle. And we're gonna incorporate a little bit of green. Now again, I don't have a lot of experience with this. I'm not going to let it stop me. We'll see how this comes out. I'm not using a particular method. I'm just kind of going with what I feel could work. Not a lot of science behind this. There's more intuition than anything else. I was inspired to do this based upon some effort I had to come up with a painting, yes, but also last night driving, my wife and I were out with the kids. My wife was driving our daughter to, wife Janine was driving our daughter to her indoor soccer game. I was driving our son to his baseball practice, and the moon outside was just incredible early in the evening. All right, so now I have a greenish tinted blue, an almost pure blue mixture of cerulean and ultramarine blue, and then that same color tinted purple. I'm going to tint all these gray to some degree, and what I want to do is I want to get a color mixed. I'm doing some pre-mixing here, and it's not the most scientific or exciting thing to see, but I'm going to take some burnt umber, some sap green, and I'm going to mix some of my shadow color, which will be somewhat monotone or monochrome, chromatic in the for the earth and the tree colors, and a little bit of yellow ochre, a little bit of burnt umber, a little bit of sap green, and then I'll pull in some dioxazine purple, and I might pull in some cad red in a little bit as well. Actually get a fair amount of dioxazine purple in there. There we go. Try and get a rich, kind of dark chocolatey color, which what we'll do is we'll modulate this. We'll incorporate different blue hues into that. But I just wanted to get that kind of warmer puddle of dark earth tone started, so I wasn't mixing it as we went. Okay, so now we're gonna get going. We're gonna build in some of the shapes. What I see here, moon in this area, nice leafless winter deciduous tree, older tree, kind of cowering over maybe a pathway, and then a whole bunch of mixture of deciduous and evergreen. So it's going to create kind of like the circle composition here with the moon and a little bit of cloud cover. Hopefully it's interesting. We'll see. So I'm going to get some of this earth tone, and I'm just going to build in some of the basic shapes here. And if it's real rough, it doesn't matter because we're going to wipe a lot of this away like we normally do. Okay. Turn that up a little bit. A little bit more pigment on there. There we go. A lot of oil in that brush, which is fine. Okay. All right. Now, we're going to leave that for a minute. And what I'm going to do is we're going to go in and get another rough kind of hardware store brush. And this one has also seen better days. I'm going to clean it out a little bit of oil in there, and I'm going to get some of this blue. I got one more oil in there. Pull more cerulean in there. All right, and we're gonna. All right, that's fine. I'm gonna wipe that off. We're gonna do a couple of thin coats. We're just gonna get this on and cover the canvas as fast as we can. There's gonna be a lot of overlap. We are going to pull in some of that greenish blue, get it down toward the bottom, and some of that purplish blue, and get it towards the top. Like I said, we're going to gray this out. We're just getting this initial layer paint in. And if it runs into each other, it's okay. We're going to do a lot of work with paper towel like we normally do and wipe this out. Okay. Put that down. My paper towel. We're going to start in the sky. And we're going to create a nice open spot. Actually, I'm going to get a little bit of oil and use my finger. And wrap the paper towel around my finger like this. Dip it in linseed oil. It's pure boiled linseed oil. No harmful astringent. I'm going to get that up a little higher. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to go back to just a loose paper towel that's dry and just play around, wiping the heavy paint off. There is a little linseed oil mixed into that paint. We want this to be kind of a, let's call it a dreamy, mystical, eerie kind of feel to it. So, you know, what we're going to do is we're going to start with this warmer set of shades of blue and lavender, and we'll probably green it and gray it out. So even with Nocturne scenes, in this sense, at least it's my opinion with the limited experience I have, it's no different than any other scene. It's much easier to cool a painting down from a color temperature standpoint than it is to warm it up. So we're starting warm, and we'll cool it off a little bit. But right now, just playing, kind of intuitively, you know, building some patterns and shapes, playing with edges, making sure we get the whole canvas covered. From time to time I'll come back. I think what I'm going to do with this moon is I'm going to have the almost kind of nested, and this is where the inspiration from my drive yesterday comes into play. The cloud was kind of nested in this mass of clouds that was kind of floating away from us, actually. There's all kinds of crazy fronts moving through and stuff. The weather's changing. It's warm right now. We're in mid-February and we're having like one of those kind of faux spring days, so I'm sure there's all kinds of weird kind of movement going on in the atmosphere, and that's what we experienced last night, and that's kind of partly what's inspiring this. All right, what I do want to avoid is mixing in that earth tone into the sky. I want to keep those separate, especially in the main part there. So, all right, so I'm gonna hit the pause button here. I'm gonna get, actually use that same paper towel. So, 2 comments expanding on what I just said. So, in my mind, it's okay if any of the sky colors bleed into my suggestion of trees and the earth. We want to avoid is the reverse from happening. We don't want any of the earth tones to bleed into the sky. So sky tones and hues and paint bleeding into the earth, okay, that's good. earth tones bleeding into the sky. That's bad. All right, so what I'm gonna do is we're not gonna have, with the exception of some of the tree branches from this big deciduous tree, which is gonna come over the top here, we are not gonna have any sharp edges, with the exception of that tree, and then maybe certain aspects of the moon. So we're just gonna take the time to soften some of the edges and build some interesting textures here. Obviously we're gonna darken that quite a bit, but this is just the beginning. I don't think this painting will take much more than an hour. It's a smaller painting, but you never know. Doing a lot of experimentation, and that's okay. Got an early start today. Have all my meeting prep done, and we'll get this painting as close to done as we can in this first sitting here. All right. So now, what I'm gonna do is wipe out this brush that I use for the sky, and I'm gonna get a slightly smaller, well-traveled hardware store brush. Let's see if I can get one here. Yeah, there we go. I'll wipe that out. This one already has a little bit of kind of a sap green mixture in it from a prior painting. And I'm going to go in to my earth tone. I'm going to pull in some more sap green. And I'm on the other side of the brush, some more dioxazine purple. More sap green, there we go. So we kind of have a muddy, greenish, dark hue, and I can darken that further if I need to without using black. Like I mentioned, we're gonna avoid that whenever possible. Darken this a little bit, and if in sections of this earth suggestion of like the trees and the earth surface, the earth plane here, there's lighter bits showing through, that's totally fine. That actually will help create the illusion of depth, and also give the indication of maybe some of that moonlight. Bouncing off of little things here and there. Okay. And then I'm going to pull in more of that dioxazine purple up toward the top here. And we're going to pull some more in. There we go. And we're going to, especially toward the bottom of any of the tree canopies and on the ground in the foreground here, we're going to lay that in, darken it even more. All right, now I'm going to clean paper towel here. And I'm just going to, you know, I'm going to use my dirty paper towel. I don't want to waste a clean one yet. We're going to crumple this up so you have kind of all kinds of variations here. And we're just going to just dab here and there throughout where that background set of trees might be. Just moving the paint around a little bit. No rhyme or reason. Trying to create some interesting patterns and lift some of that paint off for two reasons. One, we want that tree canopy, the tree shapes in the background to be a little bit lighter than the earth in the foreground, and we want to thin out this paint so we could put in much darker vertical deciduous tree in the foreground here. And if we kind of creep into the sky, that's good. We want that actually. Yeah, I'm just going to take a couple deep breaths here and figure out whether or not I like the way the composition is coming together, and I think I'm good with it. Now my 13-year-old self, in my mind, I still tap into that from time to time. I'm thinking, boy, it would nice to have kind of like the silhouette of a wolf or a coyote howling at the moon right there, but we're gonna leave that out in all likelihood. We'll see. We shall see. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to work on that sky a little bit more. I'm going to pull some cerulean, my cerulean blue over to the left here. And this brush already has some of the existing sky colors in it. Pull a little bit of the green, sap green in there, a little more cerulean blue. It's going to create let's see, how's that looking? Yeah, there we go. Let's see how this looks. Just want to start creating the suggestion of this cloud mass that we're going to have the moon kind of nested in. And this will gradually get grayer. Let's see. Put a little bit of weight in there. Yeah, there we go. A little more titanium weight. We're not going to use a lot of weight here at all. A little more of that. And we'll play around with that in hopes that we can get some interesting patterns going. There we go. And again, we're going to play a little subtraction game here. soften and also create some asymmetry and variance in some of those marks that I created with the paper towel. There you go. All right. All right, I think I'm good with where we're headed here. Yeah, this cloud mass might have some kind of little pieces that break off and drift up like this, but for the most part it's a wall of clouds across the landscape. And when we say a wall of clouds, we know that, you know, we're dealing with water vapor. So yeah, it kind of does what it does. Doesn't have any sort of permanent form. So we're going to try and honor that. Okay, excellent. So here we are. Definitely am liking the contrast here. It's close to the darkness that I want to see within the earth section. I'll probably have to cool that off quite a bit in certain areas to get it closer to what I'm aiming for. And before it dries, I want to just break that up a little bit. Also, before it dries, I want to make sure that I do what I can to create the illusion of depth in the sky. And just like we would in a scene where we were painting during the day, you could do so with the help of linear perspective by kind of indicating that these cloud masses, as they go off into the distance, group together and become more horizontal as they get down closer to the horizon, which in this case is down here. So we'll do that. Same rules apply in that sense. So some of the light kind of reflecting through the clouds and kind of create these indications of some striations. There we go. Create some depth along that sky plane. Alright, good. And we might work at that a little bit more. We might tint that a little bit. If it aids in the effort to elevate the painting and make it more interesting. And just a little bit more there. come through and we're going to cool off some of these areas. I don't know if we're going to do it right away. What we're going to do is we're also going to maybe darken and cool off some of this area. And then we'll lay in the big dark tree in the foreground. Gonna wipe this brush out. And actually we'll use some of that paint that's on there already. We'll get it up here. Here we go. Yeah, it's funny, even when you take a big risk in a painting, really not much of a risk at all. Because, I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen? You could wipe away the painting, scrape away the painting, and start over. So, it's really not anything worth stressing over. It shouldn't be stressful. It should be fun. It should be relaxing. The only way you get to that point is by doing it a lot, just like anything else. It's a stack of skills and a stack of skill sets, actually. Drawing, color mixing, observation skills. So I'll pull some of that green in. Do it enough, you get desensitized to some of the worry and doubt and all that stuff that creeps in. So if I ruin this painting right now, it's not going to ruin my day. Alright, I'm going to go through and wipe off again. With paper towel, and I was just reminded too here of one of the observations I had. Not only does the moonlight reflect down and create shadows and light spots, it also reflects up. So as the moonlight pierces the different atmospheric elements in the sky, it actually will reflect up too, and out, depending upon how the clouds are arranged and everything. So try and honor that here too. And hopefully it creates a better illusion for us. There we go. Yeah, I think we're pretty close to where we want to be with much of how the sky is arranged. So we're going to invest a little bit more time in building up the earth, qualities of the earth and the tree canopies here. Just a second, just want to kind of build in some variants that will drift into and behind trees that I end up pulling up. Now I'm just starting to think in terms of the arrangement of patterns and what is going to help pull the viewer's eye into the center of the painting. What kind of interesting things can I do? That are interesting but not distracting. Getting there. I am going to tinker a little bit with the moon itself, and in the effort to create the indication of some of the shadows that normally appear on the moon. Before I do that though, I'm gonna take a thinner brush from my collection here of brushes, and I'm gonna start with some of this dioxazine purple and some of this blue, and then I'll pull in some of this green. We have a color that looks almost black. There is no black in it. So far, no black in this painting at all. Get some oil in there. And we're gonna get this initial pass at this tree. This will be the main trunk. All right. And then from there, we're going to thicken it a little bit at its base and make sure the taper is accounted for. Then we're going to have right around here, we're going to have one branch come out, and this particular tree, this might be a rock oak, which out here the limbs tend to bend off like this. And we'll warm this up in spots and create some indication of some interesting textures, but for the most part, it's going to be the darkest part of this painting, and it is going to obscure the sky. That's going to be the basic shape, and we're going to create some creepiness here in just a minute. I'm going to put this brush back, and we're going to try and get, there we go. This brush will help do the trick here. I'll work in a little bit of that black, not much, just a little. And we're going to use quite a bit of paint here. And start creating some of these tree branches that kind of taper almost to a point and branch off, and some of them are, you know, they're not going to come out just right, and that's okay. We can fix that. For me. And we're going to spend a good amount of time here working through this. And just creating a whole mess of a network of branches that flow. And more of that green in there. Through and around. The sky, and I'll vary the color temperature, in some cases adding in more blue, making it cooler, in some cases adding in more green and dioxazine purple to warm it up. And at this point I have added in a tiny touch of black, and that's really just an attempt to gray it out and make these colors a little less intense. And I also have quite a bit of linseed oil. I want to make sure that I don't have too many patterns repeated in and amongst the tree branches. yeah, I think what we need here are some more sky-reaching branches lower on this trunk. So I'm going to add those in. And also work in just some more kind of twisting and turning. Really just thinking about the rhythm of this tree here more than trying to paint each individual branch. And I love the idea of, you know, most of these kind of twisty, turny, smaller branches curling in and down and almost prompting the eye to focus in on that sky. So that's what I'm thinking about right now. You know, all the hard work when it comes to creating the illusion of detail and rendering things is done in my mind. So we're just trying to create the indication of some of these snarly, kind of smaller tree branches. Just make a mess of it. Snarly, gnarly. I made up my own word, I guess. All right. There we go. All right. Not perfect. Not really going for perfection, so I'm okay with that. But I like where we are. I feel like I need to maybe help this guy out a little bit. All right. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use some of the same color that we've been using, and we're going to get it worked into some of these areas where we built out these warmer kind of indications of there being distant tree canopy. Yeah, maybe there's some tree branches that come out from there too. And we're just going to work our way through. I'm just using this brush because I have it in my hand, and I think it could maybe help create some interesting little tidbits going on in the background. Yeah, some textures. Indications of, you know, far off distant trees maybe. I normally wouldn't do this, but I don't know, I have it in my hand. And I have paint on it, so why waste? There you go. All right, now, I'm thinking there may be opportunities to build in some features that are more along the lines of what we might see with more traditional tonalist style painters, and I also see some opportunities to kind of help out some of the aspects of that tree in the foreground that I'm less than thrilled about. What I'm going to do is take this and I'm going to pull some of that blue in for this area off in the distance. I want to create a little bit more, maybe kind of atmospheric perspective in that background, just by pushing it back a little bit with a cooler tone. And maybe that's a stand of evergreen trees, who knows. And maybe some more cerulean blue, and get it in there. Yeah, maybe there's some trees coming up a hill there that disappear. And then, kind of subtract from that warm set of colors there. Pull in some of the cooler blue I have here. Just a little bit. Okay. Yeah, then maybe just by wiping a little bit and then adding in, maybe there's some indication of, I don't know, I'm going to use a little pointy edge of my folded paper towel and just create the indication of there being maybe some water picking up that moonlight. There we go. Just a little bit, and I'll work in, maybe I'm going to wipe this brush. I'm going to take some of this cerulean blue and pull it off to the side here. A little bit of white. And a little more of that cerulean blue. Yeah, maybe. There are some indications of some reflections in a pond or a river off in the distance there. All right, and then maybe it's a much bigger pond or river than you initially think, and there might be some indications of it reflecting through some of the trees there. Just a little bit, just a hint. And we'll get some of that lighter color, worked into the tree here. Maybe there's some indications of, some of that light bouncing around and reflecting off of some of these tree branches, and creating the illusion of there being some patterns in the, kind of related to the bark on the tree. All right, there you go. this is really different than what I typically do. It's a very cool as far as the color temperature painting. And, I usually tend to drift toward the warm temperatures. So I'm gonna grab a couple of toothpicks. And I'm gonna break them in half. So I have toothpick broken in half. I'm gonna try and improve upon some of what I have going on here within this tree, if I can. Might not be able to, and that's fine. But see if maybe I could create the illusion of having worked a little bit harder than I did rendering these tree branches. Here I need to create some variance because it's just a little bit too much of a thick mass. I'm gonna keep working in that manner. I'm just gonna use the other broken end of that same toothpick and just work my way through. In some cases, scraping off some paint that I think might be on the side of the tree branches that might pick up. Some of the moonlight. Same thing with the tree here. And I'll keep working at this, but yeah, I think all intents and purposes the main structure of this painting is laid in. I'm kind of digging it. Yeah, I'll do some more work here to hopefully enhance the illusion that this is kind of like a contorted set of network of tree branches. And break up some of the edges that just aren't really helping. And we have all these kind of really thin branches that would shoot out and maybe pick up some light that might be lighter in color to begin with. So we're going to just scrape in a whole bunch of those. There we go. All right. And we get some indication of some growth going on here. Maybe some pine trees off in the distance that are dead or what have you. The illusion of detail. One of my favorite painting videos that actually got me off the couch and encouraged me to attempt to paint about 2 years ago, again with for the first time really with oil paints, Stuart Davies' video by that title, The Illusion of Detail. If you haven't seen it, you probably want to check it out. If you're interested in getting some encouragement and interest, I'm going to turn my light a little bit because it's creating a glare that's not helping. But he just does a fantastic job of, almost like Bob Ross, encouraging the right mindset when you paint, which is a skill set in and of itself. Now, I'll probably move to a different tool. I'll probably move to a Q-tip here, and I'm going to try and get some indication of some of the shadows that naturally occur on the moon. We're almost done. We're in the home stretch here. I'm going to talk about the man in the moon, at least here in the northern hemisphere. Yeah, there's usually some faint indication of there being some sort of pattern of shadows, and usually got grayish blue tint to it. So I'm just going to mix up, almost like in a dry brushing technique here, some gray on a Q-tip, and I'm going to lay some of that in. We'll see. I'll probably have to wipe it off. It'll probably go on just a little too strong. That's okay if that happens. It almost looks like a smiley face, which is kind of funny. Alright. So we're going to shape that a little bit. And then we're going to, with the clean side of the Q-tip, smudge that and wipe off. And then we'll get another Q-tip, clean one, and we're going to add a little bit more white to this mixture, and a little bit of cerulean blue, and I'm going to make sure that this moon has an appropriate level of intensity within the sunlight being reflected off of it, and some variance amongst the highlights. All right, there you go. So, I'll get some almost pure titanium white in select spots here. There's a little bit of a blue. And we'll dull that a little bit. And we'll dull that out a little bit. But we want to make sure that there's some variance in the texture and the color. I'm going to come back with some of the sky color here. And we'll rub that off a little bit, but we're going to pepper that into some of this cloud cover. Clean, dry Q-tip and blend that. Just an attempt on my part there to make sure there's enough contrast where we weren't losing too much of the brightness. All right, I think we're close to done. Yeah, I might come back after having been detached from this a little bit and opportunistically look for ways to enhance and elevate the painting, but I think this is as far as we can take it this morning here. I want to thank you for joining me. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Maybe you learned something. Maybe you picked up some suggestions for some other resources that might help you if you're interested in learning to paint. And I appreciate you joining. Hopefully we'll see you next time.